I want to chat to you about a school that I went to, the high school that I went to. It was formerly known as MET, Meadowbank Education Trust, and rebranded to One School Global. Now, there's a couple of things that I want to chat to you about. If you're a teacher, you want to listen to this, looking for a job or applying for a job or currently working there, you've probably noticed a few funny sort of oddities about the school in the way that you have to behave and the way that your relationship is with the kids and the principals or the people that run the school. So by now you know that it's part of the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church. They own this school. It's the cult school essentially. We as former members were not allowed to go to any other school, and no other kids are allowed to go to this school but the cult members, the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church members. Formerly known as Exclusive Brethren if you're new here and you've heard of the Brethrens before. Same religion, just a different name to try and, evade the bad press that they've already had. So this is the cult leader, the present cult leader. There's been 7 leaders to date, dating back to the original, John Nelson Darby, who also wrote their Bible. And with every new leader, it's kind of interesting though, we're in a period of obviously our leader, the current leader is old, and in my estimate, he ain't going to live forever, obviously. We're going to see the end in my lifetime of him, and they'll have to re-elect a new leader. The interesting thing is the previous leader was his father. So it never has before have the leaders been family, sort of like royal blood ascensions, I guess you could say, to the crown, the royal ascension. But they do regard this family as the royal family, and they kind of kept that, I guess you could say, society structure within the Brethren. So it would be interesting to see when he passes away as to who they elect. And I presume it will be a family member because they are, that paranoid about control, just as my own experience. Anyway, back to the schools. I wanted to read you a couple of excerpts from ministry. Every time the leader, Bruce Hales, is in a room like this, a church meeting, obviously not everybody is present, they record what he says. So he'll read something from the Bible, and then they record everything that he says and edit some bits out that are going to make him look bad, essentially, and keep it, what they believe is like, okay if any of us come on board and sort of critique it or put it out there in the public, because obviously they've realized now that not everybody is as loyal to this peculiar people zealous for good works as they probably originally thought. Funny that, being a cult, you're not going to have everybody agree with you. So essentially, obviously, and why does he do that like most narcissistic leaders of cults or most dictatorial leaders, I guess, for want of a better word? They record everything and they essentially send it out to, because not everybody in the cult can be in this room with him the whole time, right? Because they're not, like I've said, they're not a little convent tucked away, like a little commune tucked away in a forest, right? They're seamlessly integrated into society within Western countries where Christianity is present. So essentially, he gives mass, or what they call a word or a preaching or a meeting, a reading, and essentially it gets printed out. And I just thought sometimes it's not all about the Bible, right? Sometimes very current issues will come up, be that politics, and today that I wanted to focus on is the schools. So here's a couple of things that I found recently, and it's so interesting that I'm doing more reading of ministry. They call what they print of his word, or whatever he says, they call that ministry, right? And everybody has to buy it, has to have a subscription to this ministry. And essentially you have to read it. And I guess that's how he maintains that control over a global cult, right? Because the only thing you're allowed to read is what he says. So that's all essentially. So The Guardian of late has done an investigation into One School Global because of their, let's just say, unethical practices. And also, you probably noticed there was an article sharing my experience of how it was one of the most traumatic experiences of my life. Now, this is a screenshot of ministry that I found on the internet that was really interesting when looking through it. That you've got, this is BDH up the top here, that's his initial. So the leader has said, we need to look through the rank and file of who we've got teaching our children. Now, this is why I said it's important to listen if you're a teacher or looking to apply for a job with One School Global, because this is how the leader thinks of you or of teachers or people with actual accreditation, how he thinks of you, and then also this trickles down through who your bosses will be, because essentially they are as, just a mouthpiece for the leader. So the devil is trying to get into our schools. He's relentless. We need to look through the rank and file of who we've got teaching our children to make sure that they're true to our values. And this is a recent message I got from a teacher who's it was interesting to see that she said, it makes me so sad for them, like any scrap of joy is taken. She just saw another email where students aren't allowed to wear hair in pigtails as they got it from an influencer. Girls also have bought burner phones to watch influencers on. Since being confiscated, and quotes, students are complaining everything is being taken away from them. So this is a teacher talking about her experience with children. And another interesting piece of ministry that I was reading, I find it the irony of me reading more ministry now for research purposes as a opposer of, like they like to call me, of this cult. So to go on here, I found another piece of interesting information where Bruce Hales, the leader, has said, have we received instruction from the right source? See, you can read history books. You can take, for instance, World War II. You can read history written now about Iraq. Some of it untrue. Some of it would be accurate, and some of it would be totally not worth the paper it's written on. Needless to say, it gives their stance on the Middle East. They were very pro-Bush, George Bush, and got very involved with his campaign, as they did here in Australia with John Howard's. There's a lot you can Google about the exclusive brethren and funding the John Howard campaign. And then he moves on to say, which is so important if you're a teacher looking to work at this school, so he talks about the books that have been written. You can see what history happens is time corrupts the accurate view of history, especially in the world. Can I just... Okay, on that point, if you believe that, Bruce, this is a totally rhetorical question. Could not the same view then be held for you and all you have to say about what happened when Jesus was here and your direct knowledge of, Christianity and all the events that unfolded? Would it not still be fair then to say that you too, with time, because it's 2,000 years ago, would then have a not as accurate view of history? The irony, honestly. Moving on. He talks about helping his daughter, and essentially the feedback that he got, where it was all the things that, you couldn't print this stuff. I was saying inappropriate things about him, obviously talking about, and rightly, here is a school teacher supposed to have studied history, got a completely perverted view. That's very extreme, but that's what you're up against in schools. And I think the important part I'm trying to highlight here is, if you're a teacher, how they believe that, Bruce believes that he has no accreditation in studying history, yet he's willing to say that somebody who has studied and has the accreditation to be teaching history is incorrect. And then he goes on to say that this is what we're up against in schools. It's very important in our schools that we have to bring it up here, that we just don't have perverted teachers teaching the children. And then he talks about testing them out, the teachers, and he says here, I hope this is not going to be leaked to the school teachers. Well, here you go if you're a teacher. It's being leaked. And then he goes on to say, it's only a threat, not a promise. But I'm sure there's many teachers that could vouch for how they've been disappeared overnight for having a difference of opinion. This is just one of the many reasons why. Think twice, do your research on the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church, the cult behind this school, if you're a teacher applying for a job here or if you're a teacher currently.